Hello everyone and welcome back to the Capital Creative Showcase. I'm Marshall Garvey for GPU The Show.
And I'm Frank, your equal to opportunity gamer.
So you've seen our gaming showcase so far. Now it's time to move on to our developer showcase. And we've got 9 interviews with different developers coming up. And these are very insightful segments. So we're really excited to show you, in which we talk to the developers at length about all sorts of things about their lives as gamers, their backgrounds that led to them becoming developers, what are the salient components of their games, their influences, what they've got in store for the future, and most of all, what it's like to have to work on these games during such an extended period of having to stay indoors. And they've had quite a few interesting comments. Frank, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm really excited to see some of the insight with these developers. I mean, a lot of things like the progressive game jams, for example, had a lot of creative groups, a lot of creative juices flowing. You get a lot of chances to bounce ideas off of other people, figure out creative ways to solve these problems. And, when you're working from home or say you're, limited space, you're not able to really interact and get into those really big groups, there might be some limitations. So I'm really excited to see what some of these, insights and solutions are for these creative groups trying to make the games and how they go about that approach. So it's going to be really insightful. It's going to be really interesting.
And what you said there, that's very interesting, and very specifically what you said about the difference between working with a group in person and at home. And in my interview with Kevin, which of course you'll see coming up, he talked about how when you do development or game jams in person, there's this organic element where someone might come up with something or brainstorm, and there's this kind of proliferating effect, like you're able to expound on it right there. And that you don't really have that element working at home or coordinating everything through Zoom. So there is that human element you just can't quite recapture at home. But nonetheless, these developers are super talented. They've worked with it as best they can. They've got a lot of great stuff coming their way. And let's head over to see what they've got to say.
Yeah, Marshall. So we have an interview with one of the developers from the dev team that made the One Lowly Outpost game. You're going to see here why we should be supporting our local indie game developers. Let's check it out.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Corey Vincent, and I am with Energy Esports and the Video Game Bang podcast here in Sacramento. And I have the great honor of being able to interview an indie developer, and his name is Brad Petrie, and his game is called One Lonely Outpost. I got to spend some time yesterday playing through the game, and I'm super excited. And it's an honor to talk to you, Brad. How you been?
Hi, pretty good now that the crunch to get the Kickstarter launch is over. Pulled a couple of 100-hour weeks there, but it's done now. It's out, and it's going.
Tell us a little bit about the game.
So the game is a space farming sim where you start alone on a barren alien planet. Most of these farming sims start you out in some kind of a town or existing community. We wanted to do something different, not only just the whole in space. We want to do something more than that. So we have the player start alone. There's nobody else there. There's not even any life on the planet. And you start growing crops, the Martian style. And as they grow and you start producing more, you produce enough food for other people to come to the colony. And you start to grow community, you make friends. They also will offer services, upgrades, all of that kind of stuff. About halfway through the game, you get a choice between synthetic and organic, or synthetic and naturalistic, we call it, which is gene splicing and robo-cows and robo-animals on the synthetic side. Robo-cows produce synthetic meat. And then on the organic side, you have to really tend to your crop. It's for people who really want to nurture their crops and create the highest quality produce they can get. You'll also get live animals who require care and tending. So it's all about the personal side of it on the naturalistic side.
What inspired you to create this game?
So the inspiration actually originally came from my friend. I really wanted to build a game, but my friend, I've tried over and over to build games that were my idea. And the problem I keep running into is that if it's my idea, I treat it like my baby. I have to make it absolutely perfect. And as an indie team, you have to make tough decisions sometimes. You can't put every single thing you want in the game, or it will never be done. So my friend came to me and said, "Hey, I've got this great idea. You said you wanted an idea. Here's an idea. Let's do this game that's like, I think he phrased it as Stardew Valley meets Dwarf Fortress in space," which is a hilarious idea, and totally not actually what he meant. What he meant was more like what I explained to you. And once I tease that out, I go, that's an amazing idea. I really want to do that. So I picked it up from there, and it's been basically my passion work ever since.
One thing that was pretty cool was that you have a fairly large team, and it looks like they're from all over the world. What do you think the pros and cons are of working with a team that spreads so far out and from different cultures and different backgrounds?
So we have, just to go over real quick, we have members in US, Canada, England, Scotland, Germany, Israel, and Singapore. We've previously had members in a few other countries like Russia, New Zealand, and probably a couple more I'm forgetting. Having a team that's spread out around the world, the advantage is you get different perspectives. People have different situations in life and whatnot. And oftentimes, cost of living in other places is lower. So when it comes to the few of them who are contract workers, they can afford to take a little less money to produce work. That's been really important in getting the groundwork laid, because as an indie developer, we don't have the money to pay the wages of the United States or other top tier developed countries. So that's been some of the advantages. Some of the disadvantages, there is sometimes some language barrier, but you can work through it over the course of about a year or so. The lead artist is from Singapore, and his English isn't great, combined with some other things, and this led to some miscommunications at times in the project. But we've moved past that. By and large, I have a really good, firm understanding of him, and he has a good understanding of me. Despite the not perfect English, we can communicate pretty effectively now. So you can work past that. What's actually the most difficult thing usually is the time zones. Having literally the entire world over means that the time zones frequently conflict. So there's actually no possible way to hold a meeting during normal waking hours of all team members, because somebody's asleep at every time.
Somebody's got to take one for the team at any given time. That's wild.
Yeah.
How has the pandemic affected development of this game? Did you get started before? I'm assuming it takes a while. So did this slow down the production, or were you guys kind of unaffected due to the remote nature of your guys' operation?
We got started before, and the pandemic didn't really do a whole lot to us. If anything, it was an advantage for us, because some of us who've previously had day jobs where we commuted into work, we're now able to work from home. That means that on our breaks, we can just switch over to the project. We're working on the same computer we're using for the project, as well as we don't have commute times. Again, more time to put into the project. So in certain respects, the pandemic has been fortunate for our work. As unfortunate as it is in general.
This is definitely one of those games that feels like you need two monitors. You need one with the game, and then you need a second one with like a dozen Wikipedia tabs open, like trying to figure out how to craft everything perfectly and get like figure out how to maximize all your resources. What kind of this seems like this game is going to require a lot of fun kind of content and stuff outside. What kind of resources are you planning to provide players so that they could get that kind of stuff, the early adopters, so they know how to play this game the right way?
So right now we're shipping it with some really short explanations of the controls and whatnot, because we don't have a tutorial yet. The tutorial definitely comes after you've got a solid game, once you're into the beta phase. Otherwise, you're just going to be redoing it every single time you change something. But in terms of resources like that, we're working on tooltips, little helper information. We want players to be able to get all of what they need inside the game. If they want to go outside, they can. We actually also have plans for both a normal and a hard mode. The normal mode will allow you to use all those wikis and whatnot that you want. You know, Stardew, I would have my wiki up because I just didn't have the time to try all of the combinations with all of the people, figure out what they liked, or which crops were the best. So I just had a crop calculator over there, and I would calculate which ones would give a certain return on investment and all that. But our game is going to be designed a lot more flat, as in there's a little less which plant is best for all cases, and more so which plant is best for how you want to play. There's a little more distinctions there, so it's really going to come down to a lot more subjectivity. But getting back to the normal versus hard mode, the normal mode will all be fixed like that. It'll be fairly easy on the across the board. What we're doing for the hard mode is less. The numbers will be tighter. You know, the profit margins will be tighter, sure. But the more challenging aspects of it is, for example, the genetic mutations from gene splicing will be randomized in the hard mode. They'll be fixed in the easy in the normal mode. You know, so that players have reliability. They can just go look up the wiki if they want to, you know, and play through it and enjoy it how they like. But if they want that extra challenge, they can get them randomized, which means that wiki is not actually going to help you a whole lot.
Out of curiosity, too, like I love asking this question because, you know, you learn something through every big undertaking that you take. And, you know, you're not out of the woods yet. Obviously, still a long ways to go. But if you could hit the refresh button and start from scratch, is there any minor tweaks you would make to your development process that you think would have saved you some headaches going forward if you were to do it all again? You know, same product. I'm not saying change the game, but just in your process that you feel like, oh man, I could have saved myself so many hours if we had done this or that.
Oh, definitely. There's plenty of things that I would do differently. You know, I probably still would go to GDC, but I will say that you go for the experience, not for the results, because the results are not guaranteed.
Go into that. What results were you expecting, and what did you get?
I was hoping for a little bit more public traction, you know, sign-ups and interest and whatnot. We actually got quite a bit. We kept pretty consistently 2 of the 3 booth people there talking to people who were interested. But in the end, we walked away with about 150 people for our mailing list, you know, which is not bad, but would have been great to have more.
Yeah.
And moreover, we put together a really cool looking booth. We had a fully playable demo, and we actually talked to at least 15, if not 20 publishers.
Oh, okay.
But essentially, what we got out of it was that all of the publishers who were somewhat interested were not interested in backing up the project until it was much further along. And I'm kind of sitting there going like, well, if it's further along, why don't I just take it to Kickstarter or finish it myself and publish it on early access or whatnot? You know, what's the point of a publisher if they're not going to support the game at an early juncture as opposed to a very late one? So it was a little disappointing in that respect, but it was great to hear all of the feedback from the fans, which was universally positive, basically, except a couple of drunk guys from Firaxis who came by and were criticizing all these things about it that we're like, yep, that's because it's a early build. Yep, that's also because it's a early build.
That's I feel every video game convention's got those guys. What's your plan to launch this? One Lonely Outpost?
We're intending. It's still kind of up in the air, but the current going plan is to launch early access on the Epic Games Store.
Okay.
First, and then try and get all of our diehard fans to buy it there if they will at all. We'll also be offering a direct purchase through our website, that as well as offering streamers a what do you call it?
Drops?
Partnership.
Oh, okay.
Affiliate program. Where they would get a cut of the sales.
Wow.
I worked it out between this company that I'm working with to provide that, and the credit card fees and the cut that I'm giving to them. It's still going to be less than what I would pay on Steam by like 5 or 10%. Yeah, between all those cuts combined, it's still less than Steam. Steam charges 30%. And so you take out 3% for the credit card fee, 5% for the merchant portal, another 10% or 15% even for the streamer or affiliate, and you're still short of that 30%. It's an enormous chunk that they take out, but currently there's not really an option for indie developers to not publish on Steam. So it's likely that at some point we'll have to.
Okay, last question I got for you is just tell us when we can expect to get our hands on this game and where people could learn more.
All right, so we are running a Kickstarter now. If that Kickstarter passes, it will enter early access this time next year. If you back at a high enough tier, you will get access to the alpha builds immediately after the Kickstarter. People, if the game is not backed, then it's kind of an open-ended question. So we're really hoping that the project does meet its funding goal. We know that it's high, but we refuse to put out a funding goal that didn't mean we were 100% sure we could make this game. Our funding goal is high because that's what it costs. We've optimized all of our things. We've got plans to move to low cost of living areas and whatnot. We're pulling the extra mile to make sure it's low, but it's still $80K, and that's still a lot of money. And that's why we need as many backers as we can possibly get and to get the word out. There's also rewards for people who back and once a certain sharing goal is met. So number of Facebook shares, number of Twitter shares, all those things. We count those, and as they tick up past certain goals, all the backers get additional rewards.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Brad. And thank you to the Capital Creative Showcase for making these awesome connections and helping us all learn a little bit more about the indie development process. And best of luck on the Kickstarter. So if you guys want to learn more about it, Kickstarter, is there like a URL, a catchy URL you got for it?
bit.ly/OLO game will take you there. But I'll get you the proper links in wherever you post this.
All right.
Hopefully.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Well, that was a terrific interview with one of the developers from One Lonely Outpost by the always terrific Corey from Video Game Bang. Lots to digest there from that interview there. A thing that stood out to me the most was how they're working with developers in different countries and having to, in addition to the restrictions of the pandemic, have to work with different time zones and language barriers and things like that. That's something I never really considered. I think of game developers as being in one studio really localized, but working on it internationally. That's an interesting dynamic. Frank, what did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that, talking about publishers, They don't want to put money into a project that's not completed yet. But of course, think about publishing and marketing something like that. It's, you got to make sure you have the funding advance to make sure you can get to the end, that goal, that finish line. Going to the very end of that production takes a little bit of funding, and publishers are kind of key and instrumental in doing that. So, and another thing I thought was really insightful, the idea of, where you're going to publish, where you're going to put your game on. Is it going to be this store or that one, and doing all the research and making sure you have your numbers right, so that you can, starting out with your first big title, you want to be able to financially support it properly, or even your team, making sure that they all have the resources and the financial backing so that you can take your game to the next level, whether it be Kickstarter or, getting yourself published, like through a publisher, like I was saying earlier. So,
Indeed. Yeah, a lot to consider there, and that was very, very interesting, very insightful the way they took us all the way through all of those things in that interview with Corey. And that's a terrific interview just by itself, but we've got even more, and here's another one coming your way right now.
yeah, so we've got some really good microtalks coming up from two developers located here in Sacramento, Zach Wynn and Damian Crawford, both talking about not just making games, but how to survive making games in the industry.
Hello, my name is Damien, and I am doing a talk today called How to Survive Making Your First Game. Now, who am I anyway? I have been making games full-time since 2013. There's been a couple months here and there, but for the most part, yeah, I've been making games full-time for the past 7-8 years. I've made a lot of games. I've made mostly RPGs. I've made a couple Twitter bots even. I did like a book of haikus, but it's mostly been just a lot of games. You might have heard of Legend of Moros, or the big one is I have low stats, but my class is leader, so I recruited everyone I know to fight the Dark Lord. Now, none of these were especially successful. My career hasn't been what most people would call successful, but I've done well enough to still be in the scene and able to continue making games. And that's more than a lot of people can say after even just 3 years, let alone this long. So, you want to be an independent developer. Making games is a lot of work. It's a gross amount of work. There's a big difference between, oh yeah, I think I'll just make this little thing, and okay, so you want to make an actual commercial project that is going to be sold for X amount of money, and, bug reports will come in, and you'll have to deal with those, and people will be expecting a fully fleshed product. So there's a lot to do, and you can't really know about all of it until you've actually done it. So here's some stuff to keep in mind, and this isn't going to be so much about talking about art or design or any of that. This is going to be more about you and the decisions that you have to make just around the game in general. First off, game title. Lots of people do, X of Y. It's a standard sort of. It's a simple title. It gets the point across, but there's so many people that do it. Myself having done that already with a couple of my games. It's boring. It's easy to gloss over. Nobody really looks at one of those titles and goes, oh, okay, let me actually see more just based on that information. I've done incredibly long titles, but then nobody can remember them. So it's important to search for a happy middle ground and think about a couple different options for your titles, because that's going to be one of the big things that people look at, like straight up off of your game. Besides, screenshots in the trailer. The title does matter a lot more than people give it credit for. Your budget. It's an unpleasant topic, but it's a topic we have to cover. Because in the end, in order to stay in business, you have to make more money than you're spending on the game. More people means that you're spending more money. How much are you paying for assets? How much are you paying for license? How much are you paying to, your $100 fee to get onto Steam, your other fees to get into shows and rent tables at events, etc. Don't forget about food and shelter. Those are still expenses. That's still money that needs to be paid at the end of the day to keep the business running. And time is money. Seriously, it's a very, very important thing to understand that the less amount of time that you're spending on things, the sooner you can recoup costs. And advertising is something that I'm not great at because partly I haven't had the budget for really big advertising besides, Twitter and Facebook, social media, that sort of thing. But it is important to think about and look into. Living, you have to stay alive while you make the game, otherwise you're not making a game, plain and simple. And it's not cheap to live. That's something that you need to really consider when you're talking about budgeting and how many people you're actually going to have on the team. Do what you have to get by. If you have to take a side job, if you have to do whatever in order to just make ends meet. I mean, I had food stamps for a few years because that was how I could make sure I could keep making my games. Apply for stuff. If there's no penalty for applying, if there's no fee to apply, why not apply? It costs a little bit of time, but whatever. You may as well just give it a shot, and if you get in, then great, and things work out. Also important to have hobbies. At least do something that's not related to games in some way, even if it's just going outside for a walk, If you're too close to games, then you start to get dull and boring and just more about that. And it's important to have some amount of breadth and scope and elsewhere in your life. Again, talking about how many people do you actually need? Do you need somebody to code as opposed to buying an engine and buying code to use for the engine? Unity Store has some great pickups. I haven't looked into Unreal too much because I mostly make 2D games, but I'm sure there's stuff there too. Assets versus wages. Is it cheaper to pay somebody to do this, or is it what you can just pick up off of itch.io or something going to work just as well? Also, time versus money. Again, we're looking at how much time is it going to save you, how much is that time worth? Because the faster you get a game out, the sooner you can get sales. The sooner you get sales, the sooner you can start making up the expenses from when you weren't selling anything. The size of the game. How big is what you're making? Honestly, are you trying for a 40-hour epic RPG, or are you trying for a single-floor roguelike? Which a roguelike, there's still going to be generations, algorithms, etc. that you're really going to have to work on polishing and making well. But I want to talk quickly about minimum viable product, or MVP. MVP is about getting the bare essentials across in the game for people to play and to get feedback on. Because if it's not good at the very base level, it's not going to be good once you polish the pixel art and add all the sound effects and whatnot. Also, it's important to, at some point, quit polishing and just ship it and move on. Because you're going to try for making something perfect, and that's just not possible. People talk about the 90-90 rule, how 90% of the time is spent making the first 90% of the game, and the last 10% of the game also takes about 90% of the time. What we're really talking about with this rule is the fact that 20% of the tasks that you do account for 80% of the profit and people's interest in the game. A lot of people make crafting systems or really excessive skill trees in their game when people really don't care about that sort of thing sometimes. With some games it's appropriate, with other games that's not really what they're there for. So figure out what's important to your game and focus on those one or two things. And again, because we're talking about business here. Less time you spend on it, the more money you can make. Testing. Test early, test often. It's easy to get wrapped up in what you're doing, or there's people that actually enjoy play testing their games and then they spend too much on it and they're not actually developing it much. So keep that in mind. The big thing here is that developers for a game are not great testers for that same game. Do try and find some friends or somebody to actually play it and give it a try. Money takes time to come along. Sales don't come instantly, and that's something that you need to understand and expect. Don't expect instant success. Success might not actually ever come, and are you okay with that? Because yeah, it's a tough business. But here's some other talks that I think are good because I'm coming up on time here. You Don't Stand a Chance by Rami Ismail, Frick Filler by Jean-Willem Nijman, and How to Survive in Game Dev for 11 Years Without a Hit by Jake Burkett. Fantastic talks and good references that I used. But I hope this helped. My name's Damian Crawford. You can find me most places at Developer Damian, and my website is cannibalinteractive.itch.io. Thanks so much. Hope it helped you. Goodbye.
You have an idea. You have the heart and drive. You have a world that needs to be created. You have decided to be a solo game developer. At the very beginning of the NES classic The Legend of Zelda, our hero Link runs into his first NPC in a cave.
"It's dangerous to go alone,"
the old man tells Link. However, that's not all he says.
"Take this."
Handing him a sword, Link grows more confident to continue his quest. Notice the old man didn't tell Link to give up. In what very few words the technology at the time would allow him to say, he told Link that the road ahead would be tough, but in the same breath told him that it was possible with some help along the way. My name is Zach Wynn, creator of the classic 80s arcade-inspired Mocha Mania, and the currently in development The Questings of Pone and Patu. And I'm a solo developer. Whatever your reasons for starting this adventure into game development, congratulations and welcome. And if you're going it solo, kudos to you. I can honestly say that game development has been one of the most rewarding experiences I have ever undertaken. That's not to say that it can't be overwhelming too, especially when you're a solo developer. Why don't we take this entire solo game development experience itself and look at it as if it were a video game? And the goal is to see our project to completion. I'd like you all to meet Bulby. Go on, say hi, Bulby. Bulby will represent our idea, and we need to help them get to the end of the game so we can feel accomplished, see the credits, and ultimately begin a new experience afterwards. I want to give Bulby a few tools and power-ups that I've been given throughout my own quest of developing games. The first tool I'm going to give Bulby is the side quest log. We're working alone, with no one to hold us accountable for the work but ourselves. If you're anything like me, a lot of shiny objects are going to distract you along the way. Therefore, create for yourself a work schedule. Maybe you have a day job, or you're going to school, or both, and have to use what little free time you have to work on your project. Maybe you're devoting 100% of your time to the project. Whatever your story, pick at least 3 days a week to work on your craft for at least 30 minutes. Part of the difficulty is just getting started with your work. If you dedicate at least 30 minutes to your project, I guarantee that most of the sessions will turn into longer productivity. How do you know what to start working on, though? Try something out that I do. Give yourself a focus for that work session. We're going solo, which means that we have a lot of different hats to wear, and that can become overwhelming. Find your focus for that day. It can be working on your code, developing art for your game, finding a learning resource to better your craft, whatever it is. Pick something, focus on that, and dedicate it to that session. Don't pull yourself in too many directions at once. Alright, Bulby looks a little happier. Now let's give them the mental health potion. From my own experience, there have been days where depression can set in. When you work alone without others that can relate to you and your project, it can feel lonely. There will also be days that can be beyond frustrating and your project just feels uncooperative. That comes with the territory. Here's the silver lining. You're your own boss on this project. Take that mental health day. Do something that you love. Go on a walk. Watch a movie. Stare at a wall. Whatever it is that helps you reset, do it. Here's the trick to that, though. Don't go straight back to your project once you start feeling a little better. You have to marinate in that healing potion a bit longer. Then you can go back to your project. It's easy to be fooled by a good feeling, and perhaps our mind hadn't fully recovered from the earlier trauma like we may have believed. Be kind to yourself. Hey, Bulby looks a bit brighter now, don't they? There's one more thing I want to give them, though. The musical note power-up. Communication is key. With who, you might ask? I mean, we are sitting there staring at a screen by ourselves. Guess what? A common misconception with being a solo developer is thinking that you're actually doing the solo. Go to your family, your friends, your peers, whoever might listen, and talk with them. Share your progress and accomplishments often. Bounce off ideas. Don't keep it all to yourself. Find a few people and sing this world you're creating into existence. Then, when the time comes, ask for their feedback and critiques. And this is important, when they do that, listen to them. That means don't speak. Hear how they interpret your work. Remember that asking for their input does not mean that you're being put on trial. It means that you're learning and growing your craft. Perhaps that game mechanic isn't as obvious to utilize as you anticipated, or that story beat didn't quite hit the chord that you were intending. You won't know that, though, if you constantly defend your precious baby, your work. Take notes. Inform them, not to ask you questions, but tell you what they experience. The questions will come in their observations. Hey, Bulby looks pretty decked out now, and a lot more confident to continue this grand quest. And perhaps you are now too. Remember, use your side quest log and develop a work habit. Drink mental health potions every now and again so you don't get blindsided. And take that musical note to share with the other individuals that are going to help you along the way. In fact, let me be the first NPC you encounter on your quest. I know that the road ahead can be daunting, and there are days that feel as though you've taken 2 steps back instead of moving forward. Just know that I'm proud of you. You're doing amazing work, and I am so excited to see what you can create. You've got a fan in me. And before you go off and continue your journey, take this bit of information with you. Even though you may be going solo, you're never alone.
Well, those were both very eye-opening sessions and discussions on just what it means to be a game developer. You look at Damien's segment there; that was very didn't spit shine anything, didn't downplay anything. He made clear every last aspect you have to be mindful of in order to be a game developer, and not like in a way that's like, oh, it's going to work out. Like, no, if you want this to work out, you have to do all of these things right. You have to be ready for these sacrifices. Right. I thought that was very, sobering and helpful for anyone who wants to be a game developer but is probably thinking like, oh, it'll be easy, it'll be fun. Like, no, this is a grind that you have to be ready for.
Yeah.
And then on Zach's talk, that was very clever, lots of good utilization of memes, very inspiring, very, very soothing to reassure you, like, this is a difficult journey, but you can get through this. Frank, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's very important to be organized, and you got to have a roadmap to see what the future is going to be as far as taking your game from development and the idea and the initial incubation stage to the finish line where you're going to take that game and share it with the world. I mean, Damien did hit a lot of really important points, and you got to be planned, you got to be prepared. Life is very important. You got to make sure to take care of yourself so that you can therefore take care of your game. And then also, there was one thing that I really connected with Zach Wynn's presentation. He's talking about in his micro talk there that there's really an importance of like kind of a mental health and making sure that you're staying motivated and enthusiastic about your project and being able to share it with people. I mean, there's nothing wrong with taking a little slice of what you've created and putting it out there for the world to kind of get some good feedback, some good following, and people really appreciate that. There are people out there who really do show love and appreciation for those who work hard on creating something, especially when it's their little baby. I know it's always like a little safety, like, oh, don't want to share my baby with everybody. I don't want anybody to, take it. And I mean, our team's kind of been like that too. But yeah, it's really important to make sure that you can put yourself out there and feel good about it.
I definitely agree. It's a very, very good way of putting it. And again, with both Damien and Zach's micro talks there, you really get a feeling of this full spectrum of, the ironclad facts, what you have to do, and also, the emotional part of it all comes together to paint a really clear and helpful picture of what it will take to be a game dev. That many will be inspired by what they've shared. And that's a perfect segue because now next up is an interview with Zach about his upcoming game. Let's get over to that.
Yeah, let's check it out.
All right. Hello, everybody. Once again, you are watching GPU, the show. We are Game Players United, and I am your host, Matthew Gilliam. I am here in the building. Well, actually, I'm not in the building with him, but I'm in a building. He's in a building. I'm with Zach Wynn. Zach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Just in the quarantine, watching Star Wars, watching Star Trek, right. Just, doing binge stuff. And yourself?
Pretty much the same. Yeah, actually, that you nailed it on the head. Star Wars.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a whole nother conversation about how Star Wars is going and the direction it's going. But Zach, can you tell us what inspired you to develop games? Was this something that learning about the Capital Creative Showcase spurred that on, or did you have that already going on? What's your history with that?
I had it already going on. It was one of those things that was in the back of my mind. And I don't think I realized how many people were out there fulfilling that dream until I went to that first event, that Indie Arcade. And so then that definitely, lit the torch a little bit, getting to see everybody's works and, how far they've come and how, professional the entire event was. So once I went there and then even actually after that first lecture I went to, kind of getting inspired there and seeing how many people just in Sacramento were involved with this and how supportive they were, it pushed me in the right direction. So once I kind of saw what everybody else was doing and saying like, oh, you can follow your dream if you'd like to. And so just kind of went with it from there. So.
Wow, that's fantastic. And can you talk to people about like the level of technical skill necessary to develop games? I mean,
Yeah.
Do you have to be a genius essentially to do it?
I honestly do believe anybody can get into it. I'm a solo developer. I have a background in animation. So that's where I started in graphic design, working for companies. So whenever it came to the coding, any of the tech, that came with it, I had to pretty much learn that from scratch. It's definitely a challenge some days, especially if it's not in your wheelhouse, but it's doable. I mean, if you just dedicate yourself and there's so many resources out there now. So even if you're not currently going to school for that, there's so much out there that you can still, get yourself rolling and trying to figure out how this works. But it's doable. I mean, I don't think you have to be, a mathematic whiz. Now, there's definitely some limitations on where you can go with it right off the bat. But I mean, the more you do it, the more you practice. It's like anything else, the better your craft is. So.
Okay, and so what do you think about the climate of game development in Sacramento, like versus other cities?
I like that it's kind of up and coming for one. So there's almost this sense that you're not, it's not a cluttered environment at the moment, or something along those lines. But again, they're also very supportive, and it's wonderful how they come together, and they're always there. If you have a question, if you need anything, they're very, they're right there with you. And it's a vast array of different creators out there too. So that was one of the things I noticed at that indie arcade, the first one I went to, was just how many different genres there were. I mean, and this doesn't even just go from video games. It was going also from board games and, just artists themselves, and just seeing how they all collaborated. I think that environment is what really sets, Sacramento apart from a lot of the other scenes. So
that's exciting. I agree. So in getting you started in an interest in video games and stuff, was there one game in your past that was pivotal that you played that made you like make that decision, like I'm gonna create games, or I'm interested in creating games?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I've been playing games since I can remember. Two for sure. One, whenever I was younger, was Paper Mario for the Nintendo 64. I love that one. It just is so much fun. And I just remember I'm like, oh, I want to make that. So that definitely sparked it. I would also say, though, recently, what kind of brought me back around to the idea was actually Breath of the Wild, The Legend of Zelda. Just something about the creativity of that game just sparked it again in me, like, oh man, I gotta do this. So
okay, yeah, that's fascinating. A lot of the creators that we talk to are inspired by Nintendo things. And which is interesting to, I'm a kind of an Xbox gamer, and stuff, and so it's all about the the muscle, the brawn, and what's under the hood, and pushing graphics and stuff like that. But Nintendo seems to take kind of have a different emphasis. It's not such an emphasis on muscle graphics and stuff like that, but more creative, original, fun, colorful type of art and stuff like that. Well, that's a great segue to bring us into the purpose of our interview today, which is to talk about the game that you are developing or have completed for Capital Creative Showcase. So well, here's a drum roll. And can you tell us the name of your game and what it is about?
Yeah, the name of the game is called Mocha Mania, and it is inspired by the 80s arcade classic games like Donkey Kong, Miss Pac-Man. And you are taking control of our donut heroes, Maple and Glaze, and they have to chill out Cup of Joe, the bad coffee cup, because he's been over caffeinated. And so each stage you're collecting a sugar cube to sweeten them up, a bottle of cream to mellow him out, and a spoon to mix it all together while you're avoiding his flying coffee. So.
That sounds fun, and it almost sounds like what happens to me when I go to Starbucks.
Yeah,
so,
very inspired, yeah.
Or in my mind. So with that being said, I am going to share the trailer here for Mocha Mania. Wow.
Yeah. Short and sweet. Yeah.
Yes. But I right away see the similarities to kind of the 80s platform game. Definitely a little bit of Donkey Kong in there, and certainly awesome kind of sounds. Can you talk about those sound effects and like what inspired them and where you got them from and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so all of the sound and music I also created. It was just a program that kind of helps you do 8-bit, that old classic arcade sounds. And I listened to pretty much this whole process. I just played Donkey Kong over and over, just kind of hearing and seeing and feeling how the player moved. And a lot of the sounds were inspired a bit by that. The music especially, I was noticing in those old, not even just Donkey Kong, but Burger Time was another one I was into. The song it's just a building on itself every level or every stage that you go to, and so that was where that's where the music started coming from. So every stage it just goes up a little bit higher until the ultimate climax for the last stage. So yeah.
I really like that. One of my old memories is going to the arcades with my parents and stuff like that, and we would the whole arcade was filled with these kind of 8-bit sounds and stuff like that. So so for me it's almost like a comfortable ambiance or something like that. I just that is the soundtrack of my life, maybe.
Right.
Is the way to put it. So that's awesome. Now the character design in this in this is also something that's very interesting. So I'm gonna share a screen. You sent me over a little bit of the art there. So here, let's take a look at that. And here, what is this that we're looking at?
Yeah, so the top right corner just shows, the pixel version of Maple, which is the main character of this. And I was trying to match the designs of the artwork that would be on the actual arcade cabinets.
Okay.
So, which they had almost that old, compare like almost that old like 1930s Disney cartoon rubber, animation kind of look to them. So again, I looked at Donkey Kong's. They had a lot of inspiration from there, and Super Burger Time again had a lot of that kind of caricature, and I wanted that design to kind of match what they look like then. So.
Okay, well that seemed to work out pretty good because I kind of want to eat this this character here in the top corner. I was told that you actually have a sample of this game running.
Yeah, I do. I can share that now.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
This is our title screen, again, very inspired by old arcade games. There will be a 1 and a 2-player option. Oops. There we go. That you can go between. We'll do the 1-player one just for the demo here. And then the 2-player will operate just like those old arcade games did as well. It's not at the same time, it's a taking turn adventure. So, once somebody dies, the other one will take over. So we'll give that a start. We have our intro title screen. This is Mount Java, where everything is going to be taking place here. And we're pretty much climbing up the volcano as we go. So as you can see, we have Cup of Joe down there, just shooting his crazy coffee. The coffee going up is not going to hurt you, but you need to be careful about what's raining down.
Got it.
And I'll show you that. If it does, it doesn't end too well for you. So.
Oh.
And we are trying to get that sugar cube, which is to sweeten Cup of Joe up.
Okay.
We have to get that cream that's on the second level there, and that is to mellow them out. And we need to get that spoon.
Okay.
And on the way, you can pick up sprinkles to add up to your points.
Nice.
And this thing right here is our umbrella, which is our power-up. And whenever Entry Maple has that, you're safe, and you can also get some extra bonus points here with your little umbrella. So you want to make sure you take advantage of that on certain spots. So. And we will get on up here. Almost got it. Once we get our spoon, he's stirred up, and then we can go on to the next area. So
This Mocha Mania is your entry into this year's Capital Creative Showcase.
yes.
Well, do you have any shout outs that you'd like to give to folks at this time?
Yeah. I mean, if you want any information on both Mocha Mania or the Questing Sapone and Patu, you can check out my website at zacwin.com. That's ZACHWINN.com. So I post everything there. I'm also on Twitter at ZachWinArt. So you can check out, anything I have there. I do, occasional video uploads just showing progress. So if you want any details about what's going on with that as well. And then I will have a release date for Mocha Mania by the end of the year. So keep a close eye out for that. And I think that should be it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is a fantastic game here, Mocha Mania, and we're also looking to what happens with the Questings of Pone and Patu. We are here with Zach Wynn, and you are watching GPU the show. I'm your host, Matt Gilliam. Back to you guys.
And a terrific interview with Zach Wynn by GPU's own Matthew Gilliam. And so much to dissect there. One thing that really went close to my heart was how Zach talked about how he was so actively encouraged by his peers in the SAC gaming community, and was also asked further about what makes the SAC scene stand out in comparison to others, like especially how up and coming it is. But in the time that I've been here in the gaming scene here, since I helped start Last Token Gaming in 2013, it has always stood out to me just how close-knit everyone is. Everyone knows each other, and everyone offers just like the purest, most helpful, authentic support you could ask for, whatever part of the gaming scene you do, whether you're a developer or if you're a writer or if you're a producer, whatever. We're all really in this together, and that really hit home with me, and I love that. And what stood out for you from the interview?
It's like Cheers, but for games like Tapper.
Everyone
But yeah, I think it's great that we're able to think about ways that we could be inspired by other games. Like you talk about Donkey Kong and Burger Time. I mean, these games, they're classics. They have a nostalgia factor, right? I mean, but there's nothing wrong with being inspired by other games and taking something that has that feel, that brings back those memories. And in a way, you're creating new ones, taking a concept and expanding upon it or making it your own. I think, imitation being the best form of flattery. I mean, that's nostalgia right there at its finest, is being able to take something that is very reminiscent of the past and make it of the present. So
exactly, taking the old and reinventing it or refurbishing in a way that's presentable to new audiences. Yeah. Good way of putting it. And the interviews will continue. Next up, an interview with the Judgment Day dev team talking about what they've done from the recent Progressive Game Jam. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Nathan Alsaus. I'm the president of Sacramento Developer Collective, and we're here at Capital Creative Showcase with one of our Progressive Game Jam teams who made a game called Judgment Day. So Kevin Hodge, why don't you give yourself kind of an intro and kind of talk about your team, and then we'll kind of go around and introduce everybody.
All right. Hi, I'm Kevin Hodge. I am the producer, and I also have been doing the sound design and the composition, the musical writings and all that for the game. So the game itself is it's a top-down 2D puzzle game where you go around, and first your character dies. Then after you die, you wind up in this purgatory that looks suspiciously like it's in hell, and you have to solve puzzles in order to get out. So
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And your teammate Jen, you want to introduce yourself?
Jen. I worked as the narrative design. I wrote the story. I also did a little bit of pixel art here and there for the intro and outro stuff, and I also kind of worked as the project manager as well. So that was Excellent. My contribution.
Okay, so yeah, about the game, I mean, you kind of mentioned that it's almost like a little, you're in purgatory or not. I guess like when you start the game, kind of it's like, you don't really know what's going on. Is there anything else? Because we're going to go ahead and watch this trailer here pretty quick. Anything else you want to kind of set up for the trailer? Anything about what they're going to see?
The puzzles are all box based. That would be probably the only other thing that I could do to set it up, but that's pretty much it.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and roll into the trailer and watch that, and then we'll kind of we'll come back around and talk after that. So there was the video for Judgment Day. Interesting. I made a game called Good God for one of the global game jams that had a goat. So when I saw your goat in the beginning of the trailer, I was kind of like, oh, that's cool. Goats always belong in video games. So this was one of the Progressive Game Jam 2020 games, and there was a lot of firsts this year for Progressive Game Jam. This was the first year that we had professional mentors from EA Capital Games. This was the first time that we actually instituted an executive producer role to kind of have that simulated real world, working for a computer game company type role. This was the first global pandemic that Progressive Game Jam has ever had to deal with. And as subsequently actually moving to the first online only edition of Progressive Game Jam. Tell us about that. Tell us about what the experience was, and going through all these different firsts and all the changes that we made and all the changes that happened in Progressive Game Jam this year, and kind of what that meant to you, what it was like, and how did that impact the game development?
I will say, yes, it was tougher. And yes, I will admit, I do think that the game would have had a better quality to it had it not been for the pandemic.
Right.
I will fully admit that. But I do feel that from just the standpoint of working on it, I think that we've been able to learn a lot from it. I know I myself have learned a lot about what the challenges and difficulties are when you have a member drop out, or when you have to have a new member come in mid-project, the different things that go into that. And, sometimes even when it's not in the midst of a pandemic and there is that sense of normalcy, sometimes it just happens that someone new has to be brought onto the team. So it's really good to have experience with things like that, so that the next time that something like that may happen, I'll be able to go, oh, I remember this, and I'll know how to deal with it much better.
Yeah, we actually have had very similar problems in the past, just for normal life things. I mean, even not without a pandemic. I mean, people kind of come and people go. It's a big commitment. It's not like doing a weekend game jam. It's it's a 6-month long project. It's like having a second job, and so it is a challenge that every season we see similar. So I'm glad that you got through it. I mean, the game looks great. And I kind of hope to see more of it and see you kind of take it further and stuff like that. So what was the most challenging part of developing the game? I mean, other than the pandemic, because obviously that was a big part of it, but I mean, from a mechanics standpoint, all that kind of stuff, was there anything that really just was kind of a serious challenge that, because I've made a number of games myself. In every game, there always seems to be that one thing that really just kind of that gets you, and you have such a hard time to kind of beat your head trying to figure out how to actually get by it. Was there anything like that in this game that kind of, posed the biggest challenge?
I think it's because since it was our first as a team and everything, it was the game design part that took a long time to really settle down Kevin can go more into that because he was able to create graphs and
Yeah, so I didn't know at the time because like it was my first time doing game design in any capacity, and I didn't realize the sense of urgency that there is to it. Like I understood the aspect of it that has to do with you want to make the game really good, and you want it to make it in a sense that players will love it when they play it. There's that half to it, but I didn't realize that the other half is there where you also want to make it quickly, because the sooner you get it done, the sooner the rest of your team can start working on it. And I didn't realize that until really far in, like a month in. And so like that was when I was like, oh shoot. And by the time you realize it, it's like there goes a full month.
It sounds like you guys had a good lesson learning progressive game jam where you can learn quite a bit, and that's good. That's kind of what we're doing the project for. What was your most exciting thing about the game?
for me, it was the intro.
The intro?
Yeah.
Like I had a lot of fun doing that, and I'm kind of glad I did, and especially since it's the first thing that everyone sees when they're opening up the game. And I've gotten feedback on how a lot of people enjoyed the humorous take on it.
Yeah, I agree. I also really like the intro. Yeah, Jen, you did a really good job on it, and I think I'm also just I do like just the project in general. Like it's not a AAA game, but it's something that we were able to make, starting out from nothing in a Unity editor.
Right.
And for me, that is a first. So, it's something that I am kind of proud of,
Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much, and I'm very happy you guys actually decided to be a part of Capital Creative Showcase this year. This is Kevin Hodge and Jenny Yao from Judgment Day Progressive Game Jam team, and thank you very much. Back to you guys.
And another terrific interview, this one courtesy of Nathan Allshouse of Sacramento Developer Collective. A lot to digest there from Kevin and his development team regarding their progressive game jam project, Judgment Day. I think the thing that stuck with me the most was how Kevin was very honest about the learning curve of this project, how early on he was so obsessed with the design aspect and constantly getting that right, getting too bogged down in the scope, scope creeping, which I always hear developers talk about. And that was a learning experience for him. So I think there's something to take away there. Like, it's okay to learn things, for game development to be a learning process, not just within the confines of that project, but also lessons that you take to later projects. Frank, what did you think?
I mean, yeah, it's very true. I mean, you're talking about losing your eye on the ball when you're talking about developing an entire game, and there's a lot of aspects to it. You got your programming, your sound design, whether it's audio or music, even the aspects of development and design visually, like is it going to be an 8-bit game? You're going to use vector art, pixel art, I mean, the biggest thing I think is important just to remember all facets of how all that comes together. It's like your Triforce, right? You got all these pieces. You can't have the whole game experience without all those pieces. So you focusing on just one, yeah, you tend to kind of have a weaker set of all the others. But it's commendable that a team is able to see this through. I mean, they had the pandemic getting in the way, probably not being able to meet in person as much or at all, and then being able to see that to the finish line. I mean, I know exactly what that feels like. You get like a team of people, and maybe you just have 1 or 2 people left, and you're just trying to complete something, and that's commendable to give them the appreciation of their hard work.
And speaking of progressive game jam, another likewise development project that we are affiliated with here in Sacramento, that we do here in Sacramento, is Global Game Jam. We had an event for that back in January, and GPU the show, we actually got to do a live coverage of that back at the beginning of the year. And Frank, I believe you were a host for us that day.
Yeah, I was definitely there for the GPU Live. for Global Game Jam earlier this year. I mean, you and Donna also were there helping out with a lot of interviews of all the different personalities. You know, we had streamers, game developers, and if it wasn't for like Lab 7 providing a co-working space for us all to work together, plus all the organizers of the local gaming community, you know, making it possible to help all of us have a place to collaborate and share and work together on all these projects. And yeah, I mean, it was a really great time. Lots of learning opportunities and you know, moments to share and memories to have for the future, especially since here we are still doing this show. Here we are in GPU live, you know, carrying that torch forward. And you know, I know you have plenty of information about GPU specifically.
I sure do. So GPU the show, we started in 2018, and we are a local variety show that covers all aspects of gaming culture. It's a big tent, and we like to have it all there. Interviews, cosplay, reviews, talks about what's going on in the gaming industry, convention coverage, we do it all. We've covered esports tournaments, we've covered local happenings in the gaming scene, we do regular Twitch streaming. I've been doing a lot of horror games myself recently. We do bi-weekly roundtable discussions on Twitch where we talk about, you know, just what's going on, like the latest rumors and all the shakeups going on in the streaming world, or what's on tap for Xbox, what their games look like, what's coming in the future in the gaming world, or just in general freestyle discussion about, you know, whatever's piquing our curiosity at the moment. GPU the show, that's who we are. We are unlike any other. We really want to get at what the heart of what gaming is about. And that's what we love to do, especially with these live shows and these special event coverages where we tap into the unique talent and all the good hearts here in the Sacramento gaming scene. And we like to be emissaries for that, and wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I mean, without you guys and this team and our, you know, wonderful community, we would, you know, how far we would actually be. You know, it's good to see that we're finally able to cultivate this kind of, like I said, community, but organization of all the people who make this community even what it is today.
If you're interested in more content from GPU the show, be sure to follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to us on Twitch. You can get all the updates in real time. We got lots of great content for you coming after this as well.
So coming up, we have an interview and a microtalk coming from our local game developer, Josie Norona. Hope you enjoy it.
Welcome everyone to GPU the show. That's GPU, stands for Game Players United. I'm producer Marshall, and joined here today by a very special guest, Kevin, aka Ramjay. Am I saying that correctly?
Ramjay, I guess.
Ramjay, sorry. Ramjay. He's a local producer, a game developer here in Sacramento. He's the project lead for Metal Burst Primordial Forces, which is being made as part of the Progressive Game Jam number 6, of course, facilitated by Sacramento Developers Collective, and his work is being featured for the Capital Creative Showcase. Kevin, thank you very much for joining me.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
So, just so basic, so tell us a bit about yourself. Tell us about your life as a gamer. What, you know, did you grow up a gamer? What inspired you to become a developer and stuff like that?
In reference to this project, this is a shoot 'em up I'm making. I guess like it's hard to say like what the first game I ever played was, because it's like I don't know if it was like if my first game was played on a Game Boy, if it was played on a Windows 98, because it's like I don't remember which one I played first. So the first game I ever played was either Mario Land 6 or Tyrion 2000. So it's my first game. It's one or the other. And one of them is Shmup, which just so happens to be what I'm making right now. So
there you go. You can draw a straight line to that. So tell us, are you, this project of yours, Metal Burst, is this you're part of a team? Are you guys a development studio or just kind of an ad hoc team?
We're just an ad hoc team. We were formed earlier this year in January. Basically, all of us heard of the Progressive Game Jam. We kind of showed up in person at the event in January, and then we formed a team on February. So we met this year, and we didn't know each other prior to this event.
Pretty quick time to come together. It's really impressive. I covered I'm also the lead editor of Last Token Gaming, a gaming blog based here in Sacramento, and I covered a game jam last year, and just really impresses me how people can get some really substantive projects together in such a short amount of time. How do you like the game jam format? What are its ups and downs for you?
Well, as a game, the progressive game jam is pretty unique as a game jam because it's actually like an 8-month long game jam, where usually a game jam is like 48 hours. So it's like It's pretty different in comparison to a 48-hour format, because it's like you get more time to actually flesh something out. And whereas in a 48-hour game jam, it's kind of just about getting something done. So it's like they're a little different from each other. I've done both of them. This is my first time doing a project of this length, and this is also my first time doing a group project. So
yeah, I totally agree. The progressive game jam, the idea of having multiple ones over a span of months, it's such a great idea, and I'm surprised that, as far as I know, it hasn't really happened much elsewhere outside of Sacramento, so we're kind of ahead of the curve. So tell me more about Metal Burst. So you said it's like a shoot 'em up kind of game. What are some, just tell me a bit about it, some of the basics.
Well, Metal Burst is a metal-themed shoot 'em up. So yeah, a shoot 'em up is basically a type of arcade-style game. It's very railroaded, and basically you control a character, and you're thrown onto a stage, and then you fight wave after wave of enemies and the waves are thrown at you in an automatic way. So it's like it's all railroaded. So it's very combat heavy game. It's very arcadey. It's very action based. So it really, in theory, it's supposed to test your reflexes, and also you generally play shmups for scoring purposes to like constantly improve yourself and such.
Exactly. Yeah, like Metal Slug. I've been playing the Metal Slug 3 as of late. I know that's one shoot 'em up. What are some things about Metal Burst that stand out, or you think can kind of separate it in the shoot 'em up field?
I did do some research before I made my game. I actually first conceived this game idea back in 2016, actually. I'd say the most unique part about it is probably the theming I'm going for, like the premise. Like, I don't use it, but it's rather like lightly themed around metal music. It's like I don't go exactly ultra hard into like the theme of metal music, but I kind of just made a shmup that's kind of just lightly themed around it. It uses metal style music as the background tracks, and that's probably the most unique part about the game, or at least the most easily explained part that's like unique about it.
I like that. Tailoring a shoot 'em up around metal music. That sounds really fun.
Although one of the problems I encountered with this is that I'm not sure if I didn't go ultra hard into the theme, because like I myself am not exactly the most hardcore fan of metal music, and because of that, it's like I didn't really like decide to go ultra hard into it when making this game, like when designing this game as well. So
no, I can relate there. Like I like a decent amount of metal, but yeah, I'm not like a total metal head. Like super hardcore into it. So no, that's still a great idea. I like that. Is this your first project, or do you have any other games or betas out there? Or
this is my first project, like working with a team in a team environment, and it's also my first project that was made in such a long time frame. Everything else that I've made prior were made for 48-hour game jams, and all of them were also made in RPG Maker, and they were also all solo projects.
How has quarantine impacted your game development approach?
Like what the differences are? I think the biggest difference is that the monthly meetings between like all the progressive game jam groups are like a lot shorter, and also a lot less like social, because the online meetings only last an hour long, and I suspect that if these were like in person, it would last substantially longer. Because of that, there would be a lot more cross-pollination of ideas, and a lot more like in-person socializing, and also a lot more in-person play testing as well. So
No, that's interesting. That definitely is a big difference, and I can see what you're talking about. Yeah, there's that organic spark when you meet in person where you can come up with something on the fly, and there's just an excitement to talking about it, and you can't really replicate that like on a Zoom call or a Google Hangout. That is true. What are some? Are there? I know I've asked about like maybe favorite games, and you say just kind of play whatever. Are there specific? Like I mentioned Metal Slug earlier, are there specific games that are influences on Metal Burst?
Definitely. I refer to these games as reference games, and the primary reference game for Metal Burst is a game series called Toho, which is also another series of shoot 'em ups. And yeah, they were the primary reference like I used when designing this game, and it was also the primary influence on me making the game. Since Toho had some really, really good music in it, and it's like because like I like the music in that so much, it's like also the reason why I focus a little bit more on music on this game as well. And a little fun fact, if you actually pay close attention to the game, Metal Burst, you may notice that the gameplay is partially in sync with the music that's playing in the background.
Oh, nice. I love when action and music sync up in a video game. That's a really...
But then it was also partially necessity because like it's a shoot 'em up, so it's incredibly railroaded, and like all levels are technically auto scrollers. So it's like because of that, it's like the players need like some sort of landmark, and you're like feel for like where they are in the level, and because of like the backgrounds don't really do that. And like the formations kind of do that, but I made it so that the music is the primary like focal point in attempting to measure like at what point in the level the player is.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, and that is true. The more again, I've only have like a fairly limited experience with bullet hells, but each one that I've played, bullet hells shoot them up. But yeah, there always is that rhythmic emphasis on music that really. That's not just in the background, it's correlated so deeply with the action. So, well, I really appreciate, said before, I really appreciate you taking the time to interview. And I'm really excited to try out your game and wishing you and your team the best of luck. And thanks again. This is Marshall with GPU The Show, joined by Kevin. And be sure to check out his game, Metal Burst Primordial Forces. And I'll see you next time. Take care.
Hi, hello. I'm Joe Robo, or RoboHaven, and I want to share a micro talk about a card game / conversation tool that I've created to overcome my personal emotional constipation. Over time, this has definitely changed, but it did take some time to get to the point that I'm at right now. Affection Game is a 18 card deck with 17 prompts and 1 guideline / rules card. Affection Game asks you to stack the deck with cards that you feel comfortable with, that your fellow players feel comfortable with, and that can change in different days, different sessions. Once you're done creating your custom deck for that session, create an intentional space for you and your partner, or you and your friends to play. This can be choosing a park and a specific part of the park to sit in, or create a little nook in your house or your apartment with plush toys and things that you love and things that remind you of each other. And the third is to play. Gameplay for this can look like people individually picking up a card, or people drawing a hand of cards if there's enough in the deck. There's no one way to have a conversation, and there's no set way to play Affection Game. I think there's a need for stuff like this because Affection Game is kind of a framework to help people with sharing pieces of themselves and sharing their genuine feelings for other people without fumbling around for what are the words that I use for this. The framework is set up on not just the cards, but also a system of being a speaker and being a listener, and giving options for how speakers can ask for reassurance or close out what they've said, and ways for the listener to share their experiences that are similar, or to reassure the player, maybe even cheer them on their journey. Affection Games framework is in a 3-tiered system. Level 1 is kind of a talking oneself up and starting to give opportunity to talk about the other person in the conversation. I kind of talk about this level being appropriate for anybody, whether it's 2 people hanging out for the first time, people who maybe have been friends for a really long time and just haven't had a time to reconvene for ages. I think giving yourself the opportunity to take pride in who you are and the things that you've done, and also adding in the vent card for you to talk about things that you find ridiculous or frustrating, humanizes you. Tier 2 or level 2 is cards that begin to make you answer what it is about the other person that you admire, the things that you enjoy, and starting to sprinkle in the things like on the soothe card, mentioning, hey, I feel a little insecure about this. Could I get some reassurance? It's opening up the conversation to something where you've loosened your armor in round 1 or in level 1. And now you're allowing yourself to feel good, feel those warm and fuzzies. Level 3, I've been told that this level seems way more like a romantic partner level, or somebody who's known you for years sort of level. It plays more on the journey of affection game, from topics that are very easy to jump in on to things like promises and confessions, because even if you have conversations with somebody often, maybe you need a prompt to unlock that little piece of yourself that you tried to hide from the world. All in all, Affection Game is a set of requests, of suggestions, and at the heart of the matter, it's a way for you to loosen the armor that you've built up around you, which is important to protect yourself. But I think with the people that you love and can trust, it's okay to loosen the armor and just get to exist as people who are affectionate for one another, who care deeply, who have things that they care about a lot and are eager to share with you. I think that is the heart of the matter, and that's something that it's taken me a long time to be comfortable with, and I hope that Affection Game helps you to be okay with as well. If you're interested in Affection Game, it is both on thegamecrafter.com and also on itch.io as a print and play version. Feel free to contact me if you have other questions about Affection Game. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Hello, I'm Nathan Alshouse here with the Capital Creative Showcase, another interview with Josie Nerona. And I'd like to basically, talk to you about, your game and your years of, being part of our community and all that kind of stuff. So first off, tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Josie, of course. I use they, them, theirs pronouns. I focus on kind of like cute, colorful games, which is kind of changing in the more recent couple of months. And I guess my favorite genre of game would be visual novels. I love story-based games.
Yeah, they're great. There's a lot of good content there.
Yes.
So you made a game that you had shown at some of our previous events, like Zach Indie Arcade. You've been in our community for a while now. It's a Josie Robo T1 Cup 1, right?
Robo T1 Cup.
1 Cup. Tell me about that game.
So that it started off from a very small project in 2015 where I was just trying to kill time between looking for jobs, really. And it's a small robot dating sim where you're on a all robot planet, and my goal for that game was basically just, how do you make a dating sim where there's no bad ends and you feel encouraged to actually start noticing how people react or how people want to be treated?
So very positive in a way, just kind of talking about the very, positive parts of relationship building and stuff like that. That's fantastic. Yeah, that's really good. So, you had talked to me earlier about, your communication and character building and stuff like that. Tell me about that a little bit.
So I think whether it's playing games or making them, I'm really fascinated with character interaction. And even in tabletop scenes, I love when people are getting into the kind of dialogue-based character interaction aspects. I think it adds another element to understanding the world. And developers, I think, do this really well, where through characters interacting on screen, they actually give more flavor, more context to why these characters are doing what they're doing.
So what went into building that? I mean, how do you approach that as far as a developer standpoint to actually kind of put that all together in a meaningful way and kind of convey that to your fan base?
I honestly think it comes from, one, observing people out there in the world interacting and boiling it down to, okay, here are the key points that I notice for relationships like this, and here's what I'd like to incorporate in my games. So I tend to have a very narrative focus in how I design games. So I'll figure out, okay, these are the relationships I want to portray. Here are the major, well, I don't really try, I aim for low conflict in games. So instead I'll have like, here are small things that I want each character to learn about each other along the way as part of my flowchart of here's how the story will go.
Right. Now, I seem to recall we had streamers actually playing some of the game at last year's Capital Creative Showcase, and your game seemed to be very popular. I know that like a lot of people were talking about it, and they were really getting into it. The streamers just absolutely loved it and had a lot of fun playing it. So, like, how have your fans actually? I mean, I'm assuming you have people who love the game and talk to you about it. How did you? How are they? Talk about your fan base. Like, what do they love about the game, and what was their feedback when they actually played it?
Honestly, so I made this game as just something for myself and a few friends, and over time, just showing the development of this game, I somehow found more people who were really in love with the concept and were willing to help me playtest this and show their friends once it was finished. And I think the biggest thing is people who play my game are looking for just a way to relax, because we always worry about like interactions and how they'll end badly, whether that's in games or in reality. Right. And so having a game where you really don't have to worry about that. It is what it says on the tin. It is calm. It is soothing.
Yeah, it's low stress. You're not like, fighting all the kingdoms of dark, whatever kind of stuff. And, yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's really what my fan base is looking forward to, is content that they can just unwind with after maybe a difficult conversation or a really stressful week. And I still want to stay true to that, but I am looking into other ways that I can branch out from just calm dating sims. Right.
So now you've been to Sac Indie Arcade, which is kind of the predecessor to Capital Creative Showcase, and you've been to a lot of our events and stuff like that. What is the Sacramento Developer Collective and the Sacramento gaming community? What has that meant to you? I mean, there's a lot of great people in there and stuff like that. I know that you've kind of influenced a lot of them with your development stories and stuff like that. What has that meant to you?
Honestly, I think for me, I'm very shy, or I have been shy when I started joining this developer scene. And for me, I kind of just kept observing how everybody has been working together really well. And I keep up to date with like what events are going on where people can collaborate. I love the collaborative nature of what's going on here. So even if I'm still like very closed off and shy, I can at least encourage people to join in and gain the skills that people look to me for and have them learn together.
Yeah, I think I've seen so much, so many people kind of really become more, comfortable, people who have, some social anxieties and, they don't necessarily, know how to talk to other people, but there's that common thread in something that we love. We love game development, we love games and stuff like that. And that really seems to be kind of an equalizer and bringing everyone together in a way that, we can all enjoy in the same way. And it's just such a beautiful thing, and our community is such a strong community, a diverse community. And it's just been a lot of fun to actually see that.
Yeah, I think honestly, getting to be at SAC Indie Arcade and Capital Creative Showcase, seeing everybody in the same space, you're like, oh my god, everybody actually. I don't know how best to describe it. It's basically like, as somebody who has only been interacting online, it's finally getting to see the fruits of everyone's labor and getting to also see just how many people there are and how different our concepts might be for our games, but people are very interested in all of our stuff.
Yes, yeah, and it's fun to see kind of from the outside too. I mean, all the interest of the fans and stuff.
Yeah.
So what are you doing these days? I mean, what have you been up to lately? I mean, other than, a global pandemic that we're all trying to hide from. I mean, have you continued development? You got anything new going on?
So I actually, let me share my screen. I have 2 games that I'm trying to work on this year.
Okay, awesome. Love to see it.
So I will share screen. So I have had my game Robo T1 kind of as my starting point into this world of games. And I've been trying to develop its sequel, and it's taken me about 4 years to get to the point where I'm like, okay, I want to complete this so I can give closure to the people who've been following this journey. And also, I think it's a form of closure for myself too, of being a little bit afraid of stepping out of my comfort zone. I think RoboT represents all of the things that I love in games of very cute, colorful worlds. And now I want to start diving into the world of horror, suspense, and intrigue.
Awesome. So you have kind of a good base in what you started with, and you're kind of expanding from that. That's great.
Yeah, it's a challenge because I don't want to alienate the players who have followed me with my previous games. So I'm still trying to find ways to make a scary game still, I don't know if I would say low stakes, because story-wise, I still want there to be impact, but right. I want to find ways to not use jump scares, not use typical things that are anxiety-inducing in horror games or
kind of a
films.
Low stress, but you still have conflict, kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. So tell me about RoboT Second Serving. I mean,
so Second Serving, we have a character that was introduced in the first game as your new protagonist, and this game basically just expands what the world that you've been playing in is all about. So you do play a series of dates, or in a series of dates, and the biggest theme for communication with this one that I wanted to do is I wanted to see how people can explore open relationships and remember that the most important thing is everybody should be on the same level when it comes to knowing what's happening. So keeping open communication amongst everybody is how you manage to avoid major conflict.
Right.
And that's what I want to kind of encourage in this game.
Awesome. I bet you have some fans that are very excited to hear this. Have you talked about this at all yet, or is this kind of an exclusive?
So I have talked about it, but up until this point, I've only had a demo out for the 4 years that I announced it. So hopefully by the end of the year, I can have everybody have the actual experience of all that communication that I've been waiting to share.
Well, I hope that a lot of fans from the Capital Creative Showcase Virtual Edition are going to be so excited about this and kind of look to find out more. So where can they find out more? Is this on the screen, the Twitter and Instagram and games, the best place to go?
Yes. So I currently have the RoboT Second Serving demo on robohavenitch.io, and every now and then I will put up updates on Twitter. Very rarely on Instagram. I think I spend more time taking pictures of character art, like the Untitled Horror Suspense game that I have going on here. But it's different aspects of my game development that I'll show on those platforms.
Right. Awesome. All right, that was Josie Nerona at Capital Creative Showcase, and back to you.
A wonderful interview there with Josie. They did a wonderful job talking about all the different emotional aspects of their game. I think a very interesting thing to consider is how they talked about the influence of storytelling games and how that's their favorite. And that stands out to me, very perfect timing, because my latest gaming addiction has been the remastered version of Grim Fandango, which I've been playing on the Nintendo Switch. And those kind of storytelling games, they don't have really high stakes gameplay per se. They really do rely more on emotion. It's how you connect with the characters and the progression of the story, how you see yourself in it, how it takes you in there. That's what makes or breaks the game. And if you get into it, it's an experience unlike any other. And that influence is very apparent in their game, as evidenced by the microtalk. Frank, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, Josie's game, for example, does a really good job of designing with context. I mean, a game with context is going to keep you playing the game with purpose, right? I mean, you're talking about an experience you're having that's very personable with somebody else. And then that experience is very going to be tailored. It's going to be different for everybody. But I mean, really on a bigger point, there's a lot of games nowadays that just is a way for a player to have escapism, to take them away from the moment, right? And this game is a really good example of having that personal moment with somebody else and able to put you in that moment deeper and have a better connection. So it's like, it's kind of how these ARG games nowadays are try to take you out of the moment but keep you in the real world at the same time. I think it's kind of funny that this game actually does a little bit of that, but in a more purpose-driven way. So, I mean, I love it. I think it's a great addition to all the other games that we have been showcased so far.
I agree. A game that clearly can serve a very healthy, very healing function for a lot of people they may not realize they need. But I think that this game can help out with that in many ways. And next up, a micro talk with someone that Frank and I know on a very close basis, the one and only Isaac Smith. He's going to discuss the BXFR. Take it away, Isaac.
Hey, Capital Creative Showcase, what's up? I'm Isaac Smith. I'm a game composer and sound designer with Just Ice Cold Creative Group. For my micro talk, I'm going to walk you through BFXR, a free open source 8-bit sound effect tool. You might be thinking, okay, it's 2020, who still uses 8-bit sound effects? I thought I'd start off by showing you a couple of examples of pretty popular games that use them creatively. The first is Momodora Reverie Under the Moonlight. Okay, so maybe some of you haven't heard of that game, but I guarantee most of you have seen this one. Both Momodora and Shovel Knight primarily use 8-bit sound effects to help with their iconic nostalgic feel. Plus, by the end of this talk, you'll realize that they're not actually that hard to create. Okay, let's get to it. Here's the UI of BFXR. It's not exactly as fancy as some other audio creation programs. BFXR is the child of an earlier program called SFXR, but BFXR itself is still pretty old. It's so old when you download the freestanding program from their site, they include a Flash version. Ah, the good old days. On the upper left, you can see 9 buttons. The top 7 are sort of presets for typical kinds of 8-bit sounds. You have Pick Up Coin, Laser Shoot, Explosion, Power Up, Hit Hurt, Jump, and Blip Select. Randomize does what it says. It sets all the sliders to random values, and you can get some pretty cool stuff from it. Okay, that was cooler than usual. Mutate takes your existing setting and wiggles some of the sliders a little bit. It helps when you're trying to get exactly the sound you want. It's also great when you're pressed for time. No, 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 no. Sure. Even though you have a great prefab option at your disposal, understanding the main body of BFXR can let you have a lot more control over your sounds, and you can create really cool, unique sounds that the presets won't explore. Up at the top, you have 12 waveforms. If you're only going for classic 8-bit sounds, you'll only want to use triangle, sine, square, saw, and white noise. You can mouse over the others to see their tooltips, but they're just more complex waveforms and I won't be talking about them here. Let's start with white noise, which is used for a lot of hit and explosion effects. These top 4 sliders affect the shape of the sound's volume or amplitude. Attack is the time the sound spends getting to full volume, sustain is the time spent at full volume, punch adds a hit to the front of the sound, and decay is the time spent going from full volume to silence. Things with a short attack sound more like impacts. Sounds with a longer attack and decay can sound more like wind or ocean waves. Compression affects the distance between the loudest and softest volume of your sound. No compression gives you a nice swell sound, whereas full compression destroys that almost completely. The next 6 sliders all affect the pitch or frequency of your sound. Since we're working with white noise, it won't be that noticeable when I change the frequency. That's because white noise is made up of all frequencies at the same volume. Let's change to something with a definite pitch. Frequency just dictates how high or low the sound is. Frequency cutoff is the point when the frequency slide stops. Frequency slide moves the sound up or down at a specific speed. Delta slide is the change in frequency slide speed. If the slide is negative and the delta is positive, it'll go down and then turn around to slide up. Vibrato speed and depth add a wobble effect to the sound. It's really useful for sci-fi sound effects in particular. I'm not really going to talk about harmonics because you don't find them in true 8-bit sounds. They affect the brightness of the sounds, and you can use them to create bell-like tones if you want. Okay, let's talk about pitch jumping. These next 5 sliders create some pretty iconic wobbly sound effects that you'll immediately recognize. Pitch jump is the amount of the size of the leap, and pitch jump onset affects how much time is spent on the upper note versus the lower. You even have 2 of them for extra fun. Pitch jump repeat speed does exactly what it says, makes it faster or slower. Fast repeat speeds get you those cool wobbly effects. You can also make the pitch go down. From Square Duty on down, you don't have much that's used in 8-bit effects, so I won't go over them. One exception is the repeat speed, which starts a note over until it finishes decaying. Let me create an iconic sound using this one. Just a second. You see where I'm going. There you go, a pretty good imitation of the Mega Man death sound. Sorry for bringing back traumatic memories, everyone. The last thing I want to show you is the mixer. You can combine any sounds you've created and saved to make really neat layered SFX that still have a distinct 8-bit flavor. Just load them up, create a new sound out of something different, and add it to your mixer. Cool. There's a lot more I could go into about BFXR and its capabilities, but with the info contained in this talk, you're now probably capable of exploring the rest of it on your own. Here's a link to BFXR's site, as well as my website info and email, should you have any questions or just want to get in contact. I love hearing from people, and I'm always available to talk. Good luck making your own crazy cool sound effects. I look forward to seeing what you guys create with your newfound sound design powers. See you later.
Yet another amazing micro talk from one very talented person we both know very well, Isaac Smith. He's a very music and sound effects focused person. He's been doing this for years. He's got quite a repertoire and a whole list of game development, sound effects, chip tunes, even symphony orchestrated and fully composed pieces. I mean, since I met the guy at Sac State until when he's graduated with University of Oregon, he's a master of music. I mean, you know pretty much well how well versed and diverse he is at doing other things, even like programming and stuff like that, writing, right?
Absolutely. Well, Isaac is truly a renaissance man of the Sacramento gaming scene. He is a core member of my gaming site, Last Token Gaming, which I co-founded in 2013, and he joined the next year, 2014, and he's just a terrific writer. Like, he's written so many articles that are unique, they're insightful, they're straight from the heart. I'm just being his editor, I sound like a proud parent gushing, but he is a terrific writer, and again, he's immersed in all these different parts of the Sac gaming scene. He's a man really of multitudinous significance to our growing and terrific gaming world here in Sacramento. The only thing I can say, Isaac, is next time we're playing Left 4 Dead, just don't go ahead too far.
From Last Token Gaming to Just Ice Cold, I mean, he's been part of our team for a long time, especially talking about game development. Like, he's the kind of guy who'll step in and say, hey, let me be a part of this development process and do what he can to help out in any way he can. So, I mean, he's a very, very commendable person. Coming up, we have 2 more interviews from 2 different development teams. One that made Captain Kitt's Odyssey, and the other one that made Mad Mind Battles. Stay tuned.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Donna, Basic Tech Walters, and I am here with GPU The Show, here to introduce a couple of amazing ladies that have created this really cool game. And I can't wait to talk to you about it. So with me here, I have Kara. Kara is the producer and project director for Captain Kitt's Odyssey. And we also have Laura with us, who is one of the game writers and social media managers. And they are here to talk about kind of what went into the game, what it's about, what the storyline is, how it got created. We have a couple clips to show and some fun stuff. So let's get started. Kara, introduce us to Ghostline Gaming. Tell me a little bit about your company and what it's about.
Well, I formed Ghostline Games in 2019, in the fall of 2019. It started off as Midnight Lunch Studios in 2018, but we migrated away from that. We had some, company issues. But all in all, I think I'm with a great team here at Ghostline. A lot of them are my friends. I went to school with a lot of them, and I met a lot of new people too through them. So I really appreciate just having the chance to work with my teammates, and appreciate being kind of like in a leadership position for them too. I never really thought of myself that way until I met these guys, and we all really have a passion for games and making games, and that's what I really love about our team.
That's really awesome, and so glad to hear. We have this shift in leadership abilities where now people are starting to really like join together with their team instead of taking like a high and mighty position. It sounds like you've got that going on. So awesome work. That's really cool. So you had this amazing leadership, just really empowering. And you said that being able to have a female leader, especially in this industry, is something that you are just so proud to represent.
Yes, because I didn't feel like, okay, this is something that I can do as a female and people will take me seriously. And Kara is really great with that. She's like, no, you're going to take me seriously because I know what I'm doing.
So let's kind of get into the game a little bit. So tell me about Captain Kitt's Odyssey. What's it about? How did you come up with this idea? Tell me a little bit more, Kara.
Well, Captain Kitt is a space pilot extraordinaire. She is a space pirate kitten. So the idea for it was kind of, it was based on the Space Kittens meme. I'm just gonna put it out there. It's the Space Kittens meme. But when I pitched it to the group, it kind of morphed into something bigger. It started off as just a match 3 game. We were just kind of gonna do something just on the side to like just get the ball rolling on stuff. But everybody started to like it so much that it's grown. So in this journey, Captain Kitt has lost her crew. She's lost this baby unicorn that she'd picked up. And you're going through the story and helping her find her missing crew and the baby unicorn to return him to his home world.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's kind of what you do through the levels is you can use Captain Kitt's special abilities, and they include, like, of course, exploding columns and rows for the match 3, and as well as like duplicating and swapping tiles, which hasn't really been done before in any kind of match 3 games. So it's been a kind of a technical challenge trying to get it to work from concept to implementation, but I think it's really worth it when you get these new game mechanics working, something that's never been done before, and you see it all come together.
So, Kara, I think we have a show or a little clip of the game itself that we're going to show. And so let me go ahead and take a moment just to kind of share that with the audience right now so they can see what this amazing game really looks like. All right, and we're back, and that is the game. That looks so much fun. I am so excited to see a little bit more of like behind the scenes and like, you know, try to dive into some of the creative parts of that. So Kara, do you have a little bit to show us of some of the behind the scenes work?
I do.
Yeah, let's see it.
Okay, I'll just show you guys the first level real quick.
Oh, cool. So we have a little bit of like the tutorial. It's kind of giving you some of the hints, the blinking shapes. And then that way it's like, oh, okay, let's do some switching and see if we can match it up.
Yep. And I'll show you guys some powers real quick. This is a special one. It's a duplicate. So you can duplicate a tile anywhere. And then this one is a swap. So you can swap this with any other tiles. And of course, we have one that eliminates an entire column and an entire row.
Okay, those are the two that I'm going to always be using. Just be like, all right, eliminate.
Oh, yeah.
This is a great one, too, because it will delete, or not delete, but it will explode all of a certain type of tile.
Oh, cool. All right, so if somebody wants to play this game, when is it going to be launched, and how do they get it?
We're planning on, of course, plans never always work out, but we're planning on end of the year launch. And it will be available for iOS and Android.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to playing it. Where can people find some more information or follow along with the progress, or maybe, you know, check out the website and see what else, you know, if there's any updates on that launch progress?
Yeah, we have a Facebook page. It's Ghostline Games. And then we also have an Instagram page, which is, I believe it's Ghostline Games Dev. At Ghostline Games Dev, and our website is ghostlinegamesdev.wixsite.com/website.
All right. Hello, everybody. You are watching GPU, the show, and I am your host and producer, Matthew Gilliam. I'm here with Gianni Plaza, and he is a game developer. Johnny, I seen your game and the trailer, and it looks pretty amazing. Can you tell us about the Capital Creative Showcase and
Sure
how
thing.
you got involved?
Sure thing. Well, it started a few months ago. I went to Puerto Rico game jam where we created a game in about 72 hours. So I was there with a couple of my friends, which are part of my team. So we were creating a game. We became involved in the Puerto Rico Game Developers Association, and from there on out, we started exploring different branches, different programs, and we came across the Capital Creative Showcase, where many creative talents are showcased, and you can promote your work and you can showcase it. And we were really interested, and we applied. And now, well, thanks to you guys, we have the opportunity to be here showcasing today. So thank you very much.
We want to talk about your game that you developed. So could you tell us the name of this game and what it is about?
So Mad Mind Battles. Mad Mind Battles is actually a game that I've been developing. I started developing as it started out as a high school project. So they told me, you need to do your high school research. What are you going to do it about? By that time, I was finishing my 11th grade. So I said, I want to do a video game. It's what I want to do. Even if it's just a science project, I should do it for what I love to do. So about what I love to do. So I went and decided to make a video game. It was I wanted to integrate education and fun in a way that it hasn't been done before, because I know some games do want to give the students the education that they want to give the availability to do it through a game, but sometimes they're not fun enough, I'd say, or immersive enough. And I wanted to address that issue to give students a game where they were immersed. It had a story, it had characters, it had everything, but you could also use it as a studying tool. Not only that, for the research, I did focus it by that time on not only how it could help students in general, but how it could help students with ADHD. So we went ahead and made a research about it. We actually participated here in Puerto Rico's Metropolitan Science Fair and in Arizona in ISEF, because we went and tested it with students with ADHD. They took a pre-test. They got about a 7.6 average score out of 20. So after they played the game for like an hour, they took a post-test and they increased to a 12 average after the game. So we could see an increase by playing the game just one time. So if they play it more times, or they make it their usual tool, maybe it could help them even more. Not only those students, but students in general. We want to approach everyone we can and help with that issue. Try and gamify the classroom is what we want to do with this.
That's fascinating, and that's brilliant, and it's just a testament to the power of gaming, and just also highlighting that it's not just entertainment. So we're moving on into refinement of the self and education and stuff like that. So this is exciting. So let's take a look here at this game. Here we go. This is the trailer for Mad Mind Battles.
There we go.
Wow, very, very cool.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Are you able to share with us a little bit of the game running? We looked at the trailer, but could we please take a look at the game?
Sure thing. All right. So here it is, Map My Battles. So the first thing you pop up is the menu with the characters and all that. Basically, we wanted to make this game as appealing as possible, as fun as possible, for any type of player, be it a little kid to... The range for the game, the audience we went with, was from elementary school to high school. So this tool could be distributed to different schools, and maybe you can see it on your school as a tool soon enough. So you have a few things here. You have achievements you can unlock. You have the usual credits, some info. But let's go to play real quick. So Map My Mazes is divided in two ways. Map My Battles is divided into two ways of playing right now. You have defaults, which is what we offer at the beginning. We basically show you how the game works with this default materials. But what we're excited about is the fact that you can create your own materials. So be it, let's say you have a test for Friday, science test, and your teacher wants you to use this tool, so that teacher can come on to Map My Battles, and they can create their own material here. Let's say science, and they can add the questions, the answers, the wrong answers, and anything they want. They can add as many questions as they want, and share it online with their students, with friends, family. You can do this with any material that you want, that you have in mind. Create and share as you please. That's the goal with Map My Battles.
That's awesome.
Thank you. But to share you more about the game itself, let's play around real quick. Let's choose math. Hopefully I do good.
Okay. I do have a calculator here on hand, just in case.
Perfect. Perfect. So you can choose amongst default characters that we have, boy and girl. But as you play the game, you unlock even more characters and more characters with more victories that you have. And
Is that a robot I see and a ninja?
You'll have to unlock them to find out.
Understood.
But yeah, as you play the game, you will unlock these characters, play with them, and our plan is to, as the month progresses, we do update the game and we add even more characters, even more stages, more battles, and our final goal on January, we're actually starting a Kickstarter. Our final goal is to create Map My Mazes, which is a full iteration of the game where you have this, but you also have a story mode. You will also have multiplayer with your friends so that the game is even more immersive for you. And for the players that really love story in a game, that's going to be amazing there. So let's choose boy.
Okay.
If I choose boy, Bryn will pop out. He will give you random tool tips for you when you're entering the battles. In this case, a new day brings new learning. So here, you can choose your difficulty. I'm gonna go with hard. Let's put a little challenge there. It really will only affect the timer. So let's choose jungle in this case. So we'll present it with the enemies. We'll have to defeat them to discover which enemies are coming up next. I will explain this really soon. Just keep that in mind. This here down below. But the gig of the game is, if you played Kahoot before, do you know what Kahoot is?
Yes.
So basically, the gig of the game is that you will have, just like Kahoot, a question and different answers. But the thing here is that as you answer correctly, in this case 200, you will attack the enemy. But if you answer incorrectly, or if the time runs out, the enemy will attack you. So the point is for you to answer correctly so that you progress through the levels. And one of the goals with the game is that the player is promoted or encouraged to play the game as much as possible, and with this they will learn. It basically serves, as I said, as a studying tool. Instead of reading a textbook, you can just use Map My Battles and use it as a studying tool for that.
Wonderful.
Case, I go 10 times 10. I was almost gonna get it wrong. You can go ahead and keep playing. There we go, I got one wrong. So that's you basically progress through the game. So on until you get to the boss.
Awesome.
Now, the final thing, what I mentioned before, was the cards that are down below, basically disabled. as you win the different battles, you will get knowledge crystals, which you can use in a shop where this character called Bono will actually sell you these different cards that you can use inside the mazes as power-ups. So let's say you're running out of lives, you can use power-up to heal up, you can use this one to double the damage, and so on with the other cards.
Fun
so
stuff.
That's basically what we have right now with Mad Mind Battles, and we plan to keep improving it with even more updates, more characters, and more enemies to come, and a story mode and versus mode.
Thank you for sharing that. So we're just a couple more questions here before we wrap this up, and the thing is, what's next for you?
Yes,
this game is awesome. It's growing and everything like that. But what's next for you? Are you planning a career in this, or are you doing focusing on education, or what's going on with you?
I do want to tackle more societal problems that come up with games. That would be a branch that I really want to discover and go through. Keep supporting Mad Mind Battles, as I said, with the Kickstarter coming up on January. Keep doing all that. But I also want to follow what I said before was my passion, storytelling, entertainment as well. So I will definitely explore both branches. I am planning to keep working and develop, found my own company, video game company called Uni Studio, and thereon keep on going and create my passion project. This is something that I worked on since the 8th grade. This project that I have hidden in a chest, so that when I do have the opportunity to have this big team, I can open that chest and create that passion project in the future, hopefully.
Wow. Well, that's exciting, and best wishes with that. I'm sure it's gonna happen for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
How can folks get a hold of you, or where is your work available to be viewed, and contact information?
Sure thing. You can find my contact information and everything through my my website of Juni Studio, and I'm gonna spell that because it might be confusing. You go www.Juni, it's Juny Studio without the S at the end. Just junistudio.com. There you can find all my information, all about the game. Is free and accessible for everyone, so you can just download it there and start using it right now. You can also find me through Juni Studio on Instagram, and there I can also be contacted. And through my email, junistudiomail@gmail.com.
All right, guys. Well, that being said, this is a fantastic project. Thank you so much for participating and sharing with this with us, and finishing this out. You guys are watching GPU, the show. We are Game Players United. That is across genders, races, ages, borders, etc. Back to you guys in the studio.
See ya.
What a wonderful interview with Kara and Laura. Their approach to sharing ideas and having your team be part of the development of a project, I mean, that's nothing to lose sight about. I mean, that's a very important thing. I mean, I know from personal experience, and I have a brainchild of sorts, and I have a team that I really would like to take this and help expand and make this bigger and better. I mean, it's important, but you gotta get over some of those hurdles. There's some few little steps you have to take at the beginning to kind of be comfortable with not just saying, hey, here's my idea, and just letting them run with it, but being able to take your idea and help guide them through those steps, through the phases of development, as a team together. I mean, so as corny as this may sound, it takes a village to raise a brainchild. So I mean, like, video games is no different. Like, taking that concept and being able to trust your team to bring it to life, it's a very hard thing to do, I'll tell you what.
No kidding. And on to Gianni's interview with Matthew Gilliam. The whole idea of the educational game, you think back to like when Oregon Trail debuted in 1985. There've been, which is a great game, great series. There's always the idea of an educational game that, makes learning easy, finds ways to convey information, but his game really stands out to me because it seems to take a new approach. It's a really novel way of kind of reinventing the educational game. Really even blurring that line between learning and fun. all the more. Finding a new way to really, really engage your mind repetitively and urgently in a way that's conducive to learning and doing well on whatever test you're studying for. And even though I'm not a student currently, I would like to give that game a try.
Yeah, so coming up, we got one more micro talk. It's from EA Capital Games, and they're talking about working from home. So let's take a listen.
Hello, Capital Creative Showcase. I'm Nick, and with me is Gordon. We work at Capital Games, which is a part of Electronic Arts, and our studio is out of Sacramento. We work in the Icebox building. We make a mobile game called Galaxy of Heroes, which is part of the Star Wars brand, and we're here to talk today about how we've handled the transition of the studio to be work from home during the pandemic. Let us tell you a little bit about us and what we do. So my name's Nick Reinhardt. I'm the live producer. Producers in Electronic Arts are responsible for what we're going to do and why we're going to do it. So for that side of the business, which I work on the live team, that means my side is about what sort of characters we're going to introduce. Is there going to be C-3PO? Is there going to be Boba Fett? What sort of events we're going to do? Is it a Scoundrel event? Is it a Jedi event? And then the types of offerings. So anything that's going into the live game regularly, that comes through my desk. And previously, in another life, I worked in the oil industry, and I've also worked in the federal government as well. Gordon?
Yeah, so my name is Gordon Yerrick, and I am a development director for our feature team. And so for my side of the house, what that means is I'm kind of like the yang to the yin of production. So I'm mostly responsible for the how and the when. So how we actually end up approaching a problem, how we end up approaching, like, say, building C-3PO, and when we ultimately end up building it. So things like scheduling, project management, workflows, that sort of stuff is more my wheelhouse. And prior to this, I was involved in working with the government and naval simulation, as well as quality assurance testing for Cinemax and video games.
So I've got a timer going. I know that for the Capital Creative Showcase, we've only got 10 minutes at most. And so I'm going to say banana whenever we go too long, Gordon. But Gordon and I thought that we would just maybe take a few questions that we've written down and I would ask them to Gordon, and I would offer my perspective on how we've also transitioned to these things as well. So Gordon, how was the studio organized before the pandemic?
So before the pandemic, we were, I would say, very, very communicative studio. So a lot of in-person messaging, a lot of in-person meetings. So normally we start off our days with kind of our stand-ups, which generally involves the entire team kind of getting into a room. We go around the room, talk about what we did yesterday, what we're doing today. We also have, these giant team meetings to go over kind of like our sprints, which are ultimately the timelines we have to do our work. And within that is very collaborative. I'm seeing like 20 to 30 to 40 people a day, constantly interacting with them, talking to them. And with that, we have multiple teams. Our feature team that I work on, the live team that Nick works on, as well as our tools and tech team and our deadbeat group. And between all of them, we're constantly in communication, and I'm constantly walking over to the live team on the other side of the room and talking to them about like the things we're building. And live is also coordinating with the feature team on what we're doing on a daily basis. So very, very interactive and very fast-paced atmosphere that we tend to work in.
Yeah, I actually think that our studio has struggled with hallway decisions because we tend to want to make decisions really quickly. And so I also think of them as like stomping over conversations. I heard X and Y, blah, blah, blah. What's going on there? And so, but that said, like, I think that we all over years have developed a shorthand, an understanding, and a respect for one another. But to Gordon's point, like, I think that we make decisions very quickly, and we want to keep development rolling because, it's a live game. It's always on. We are always doing something new.
Yep.
So when we were first transitioning over to work from home, what were some of the biggest initial hurdles that you observed for both feature and for live during that period?
Sure. So, I mean, I'm kind of happy to say that initially, like, not a ton of obvious problems right off the bat, right? Like we had our stand-ups, so we were able to pretty easily transition over to video. But I would say that like some of the things that you start noticing pretty quickly right off the bat is that those hallway conversations kind of break down now. You know, it's you're put into a world where everyone's at home. You're kind of isolated to your Slack channels, whatever messaging system that you really have to relay information and also discuss things. And so the things that used to be very easy to pick up on, or like Nick was saying earlier, you're going through and you're hearing someone say like kind of out the corner of your ear, like, oh, well, what about this? And you're able to easily chime in or pick up on it. That doesn't really exist anymore. And so because of that, it creates this really interesting problem where a lot of kind of like siloed conversations will happen and decisions will get made, but propagating that information out and really kind of keeping the team apprised of what decisions have been made is actually something that's become pretty difficult, given the nature of just how we work and how we tend to work, being so communicative with each other.
Yeah, it's funny. I used to think that the overhead of communicating things out was really high. And now it seems even higher. That the idea of actually having to, and you would think like one email would do the trick, but again, communication occurs in so many different venues and in so many different ways and in so many different contexts for the different disciplines. Because you can have one massive overarching message that you send out to people, but each discipline actually needs a piece of it. So how do you parcel that out in the right ways at the right time to the right people? That's I think what has been really tricky as well.
Exactly, and specifically to the right people, right? Because it's a question of like, okay, who actually needs to know about this? Should I blast this out to the entire team, or do I just need to hit a couple of key people that need to know about this decision, and can they propagate that down? It's a lot more of a burden to everyone else to make sure that not only are you giving that information to the right people, but are they giving it to the right people as well?
Well, do you think we've seen any benefits over this period of time? We were sort of laughing about this as we were prepping for this, but do you think there's been any good to come out of the pandemic?
Yeah, I think so. I think that boy, of all the terrible things that came with it, I think that the benefit is I would say that it sped up the conversation around work from home by probably like maybe 20, 30 years. like easily, right? Like this is something that's always been kind of a hot button topic, and I think in game development as well as just software development in general. It's like, if I can do my coding, if I can do my work from home, like why do I have to come into this office all the time? And so the benefit of that is that there have actually been a lot of good conversations just within our company and Facebook, Twitter, like all these other companies that are talking about like, what does that world look like? What does working from home look like? And so there's a lot of benefits where, people are talking about like, maybe I can move somewhere else now, but still work for this great company that I enjoy. And then also, since I'm at home, I might have a little bit more time to help out with, my family or things like that. So there's a lot of benefits, I think, that come with the work from home transition. We've also kind of shown, while we have encountered some of these problems, I would say our efficiency is still pretty high. Like we haven't actually resulted in any kind of like massive drop in our release cadence in terms of how often we put out updates. So I'd say that there actually have been quite a few benefits that have come with it. And
yeah, I know for me personally, like I used to think nothing gets decided from work from home, and it's thawed my own perspective on it quite a bit. And to your point, like I think that there is a healthier work-life balance that exists that I think that we've either been afraid to like observe, or like it's been too difficult to observe, like being in the trenches.
Yeah, exactly. I think exactly to that point is that because we are so entrenched and we are constantly communicating with each other, it becomes this accepted theory that like if we don't have that, then it all falls down. And so I think this kind of has shown that it doesn't necessarily have to be that way.
Yeah, we've only got a little bit of time left, so real quick, and I'll just ask you, so now that we're about 6 months in to the pandemic and working from home, what are some of the things that you still think are working really well with it, and what are some of the things that you think are not working so well after the transition to work from home?
Sure, I'll try to go quickly here. The things that are working well, I believe, is our meetings, our daily sync-ups are all going great. There's been really little to no impact on that. Kind of our meetings have gone well. I've noticed that there's actually been a lot more respect for people talking because you have the kind of the two-way conversation that's happening, and everyone else has to listen. So people will pause, they'll listen to the person rather than trying to talk over them or interrupt. It's become a little bit more, I think, a little bit more respectful in that regard. Now, some of the downsides is that obviously we've all been quarantined. We're all kind of working from home, and so because of that, it creates kind of unfortunately, a bit of a mental stressor on everyone, just in their own daily lives. And so I think that has kind of evolved a little bit and has started to impact work life, which is, when I'm at home and I'm having to send individual messages to people, I'm not in the mind state to think of everyone else that I have to communicate with. And so I don't know what that person's perception is. I don't know what that person's mental state is. And so if that person's having a hard time and maybe their response is a little bit more abrasive than I expected it to be, I take that as much more offensive than maybe it should have been. And so it makes communication a little bit more difficult. And I'd say that's something that's kind of started to evolve a little bit, but we're taking different approaches to try and address that.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I've seen is I think that work from home has improved work-life balance, but because of the pandemic, work and life are in the same place. And I think that that mental separation isn't happening the way it should, not just for us in the games industry, but I think for everybody.
Yep.
Well, anyway, we're out of time, Capital Creative Showcase. We just want to say thank you so much for having us. We love the work that you're doing and that you have done, and that we're here to support you in whatever ways we reasonably can. And we hope that you all continue to weather the pandemic as best you can. Good luck out there.
A great conversation between Nick and Gordon about that transition. Working from home is kind of hard when you need to work with a team. I mean, you're talking about being in an office space, sharing ideas, and being able to communicate in real time. I mean, think of it this way. There's like the whole verbal, nonverbal communication where you get a chance to sit with a team and kind of see how these ideas are bouncing off of people and sharing that community experience, and taking that away when you're isolated and working from home and being by yourself and you're not able to have those little kind of interpersonal moments, like they call it the water cooler talk. I mean, it's kind of a big setback sometimes to see how development can change, the process of that development can change based on the simple fact that the communication has changed. And in some cases it's a good thing, right? I mean, for companies like they were saying, like Twitter and Facebook, being able to say, hey, these people get to work from home now because it's working and it hasn't caused any kind of setbacks or any kind of delay with the development process or cycle of development in general. I mean, that's great. I mean, in some cases you're dealing with the challenge of, again, like being able to communicate clearly with other people, and even like earlier interviews talking about communicating with other people in other countries, language barriers. I mean, there's so many ways that we communicate and try to get on the same page so that, work can get done and things can get moving forward to get the ball rolling, that, it can kind of fall short sometimes. I know my wife works from home, and and she initially was like, oh, I don't think I'm going to enjoy this. I don't really want to work from home. And ever since, it's like night and day difference. She loves it,
Well, that's interesting you bring that up, the dynamics of working from home. So I've been working from home for over a year now, fortunately doing what I love, writing history books. I'm also co-authoring a novel that someone hired me to help write. And for me, it's been more of like a solo thing. Either I'm part of a really small team and I'm the one doing the writing, or it's just me, or it's just two of us. So I didn't really have to do any adjustment then, or even any adjustment during the pandemic. So it was really eye-opening to listen to these guys talk about the difficulties of it. Yeah, like you're saying, all these different dynamics that you just take for granted that just seem like a given when you're in person. Right. And then that difficult transition as you work from home, but then finding ways to make it work. And I think ultimately, when you find a way to make working from home suitable and tailored to your needs, it can be really beneficial for your creativity. Not necessarily saying that it's automatically better,
right,
than working at an office. It can vary from job to job. It differs from person to person. But once you really embrace it, it can lead to a lot of good things.
Yeah.
And now we will head over to our last interview of the day with Table Star Games. Take it away.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Donna Basic Tack Walters, and I am here as part of GPU The Show. Today, we have a couple of really awesome guys that made just this phenomenal game, and I cannot wait to talk to them about it. So I'm here with Pete Ho-Ho Hansel. He's going to give a brief background on his role and how he helped develop this game. And then I also have Kyle, the winner, who's also going to give a background on his role, a little bit about what he did to contribute to the production of this game. So Pete, Tell me a little bit about it.
This game is called Substitute Santa. And in this game, Santa is sick and you've got to deliver the presents and save Christmas. So that's basically the idea behind the game. The game company is called Table Star Games. We make video games and board games. Last year, we came out with our 20th board game, which is called Bike Route Sacramento. It's been doing really great. I've worked on about a dozen video game projects and we've published 2. So this will be the 3rd video game, which is fun. And Substitute Santa was taken about a year for us to make. We started almost a year ago, and there were 4 of us. There was myself. I had the main idea, and I did a lot of 2D art and some of the set building. And we had a wonderful engineer named Thompson who just programmed anything we asked for. Hey, we want a counter that adds this and subtracts that and puts it over here. And he's like, okay, we'll make that.
That's
and then
awesome.
we had a really great 3D artist named Jonathan Camacho. And anybody who's around the Sacramento group has seen John's work. Really beautiful. We'll show the clip and we'll show some of his 3D art in a little while, and you'll see why it's so exciting. And then we have Kyle here. And Kyle, go for it.
So yeah, I took over the role primarily of production, so I kept things organized on schedule. I was the one who essentially made sure that we had a finished game by the time the showcase came around. I also ended up doing some level design work, so I helped Pete the 2 of us built a lot of the levels out together, the flow and the strategy behind it. And then I also did the sound effects and the music, and that was another whole fun thing to work on.
That's awesome. Now, we got something really cool to show you. We're going to show you about a 30-second clip here that's a preview of Substitute Santa, and we're going to go ahead and roll it now. That was so cool. And I just absolutely love those little jingle bells just kind of rattling around in the background and the shooting of the presents right into the chimney and like the counter. Like that was just awesome. And y'all did such a great job with all the texture of the snow and everything. So huge props to everybody that really helped design this game and put it into action. That's so cool. What were your favorite parts, Kyle?
I really like the different levels. So we got really deep into these different ideas of, okay, we want like a big city, we want these farmlands, we want these narrow canyons. And I think the diversity between the different levels is one of our favorite things, both as the development side and playing through the games and kind of experiencing those levels as a player.
That's awesome. And then what about you, Pete? What did you like the most out of the game?
For me, really the most fun, I'm an art guy and I love making the levels. You know, it's great to see the game come to life and play with this and that, but the terrain tool where you get to build mountains and then put the little houses in and the trees and you fly through it and you're like, oh, I can't see that house. I got to move it over here and move this mountain down and raise this one up and let's paint that one brown because it's kind of too snowy. And you run it again and you see it again and you're like, ooh, that's kind of cool. Let's change this. And then Kyle sees it and Kyle says, I can't shoot that one. That one's too hard. It's supposed to be hard, you know. We argue back and forth about how the content should go because, you know, the content is a lot of the time too. You think about the art guy, they do all their work, and the programmers, but the content developers, you know, we made 10 levels, and each level is like a whole little universe and a whole narrative behind it and a story and ideas and all that. And then John would come up with special props for that level. So the farm level's got this little windmill and you have to shoot through the blades of the windmill to get the thing. So it's kind of really a hard shot. And all of a sudden that level suddenly had a fun little thing happening and really made that level exciting. And then we're like, okay, well, what can we do on the next level? Because now you got to one up the last level.
Keep it fresh and different every time.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So Kyle, I know that you had some really cool, like, artwork that you wanted to share. So show us a little bit about what you have, some of your models, maybe what went into the design of this art.
Yeah, so pull up my screen real quick. So basically we have a bunch of different levels. This is our, Sugar Plum Village. And we have all sorts of fantastic houses that our artist John made. So I love looking at these. There's so much difference between each one. We've got taller ones. We've got shorter ones. We've got different kinds of chimneys that you're supposed to hit. So there's, you know, these kinds. There's other smaller kinds that are even harder to hit. We've got this fantastic church that you fly over, and as you fly over it, we've got dynamic audio, so the bells will play and you can hear them as you pass by the church. And so really, I'm just a huge fan of the art and the pieces that we got to be able to build these levels and worlds out with, down to little trees and street lamps and walls and all sorts of fantastic stuff like that.
Kyle, turn on the gizmos and talk about how the control actually works.
Yeah, so as I hit the button, you can see the absolute chaos that is the level design field. So we have all sorts of boxes that trigger things. So if you don't hit a chimney, then you go through the box, it's registered as a miss. You've got this green line, which is the track that you fly through. So you go all the way around this little village and loop around and come back. We've got these orange lines that are the dynamic audio system. So as you pass by a place, you have a sound triggered from inside a forest or from inside this church that really help immerse you in the world.
So Kyle, you were talking about some of this 3D art here, some of the pathways that are going on, some triggers that are going to help with sound effects. What are some of the steps that needed to happen in order to bring the game to a polished final product?
So it took a lot of communication. I think that's one of the most underrated things in game development is the amount of communication that's required for the entire team. So specifically between myself and our programmer, Thompson, communication on how, what sort of tools I need to build these levels. He built all of these fantastic little gizmos that are super easy for me to use as a non-programmer, so I know how to make this track go to and fro and do cool things like turning and implement all the game design stuff, as well as with the audio, me being the sound designer, working with him on giving me the tools I need to do my job and making sure that all four of us are in constant communication on what's done, what needs to be done. Every single week we check in. Actually, every single day we check in on the mornings on who's doing what, and then every 2 weeks at the end of a sprint we talk about all the stuff that we need to do next and iterate from there.
Awesome. So lots and lots and lots of communication. That's the key to success.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's perfect. Just like any other kind of relationship that you got going on, you need to have that communication in order to get something accomplished, right? So, basically we kind of went over a couple things. We went over your different roles within the organization. We kind of reviewed a little bit about Table Star Games, and we took a look at your absolutely phenomenal looking brand new game here, Substitute Santa. Did a couple game clips, showed some artwork on it, and then also got to run through like a quick sample and gameplay demonstrations. So that is just such great information. Do you have any last comments?
I would say go download the game. It's free. It's on the Android Play Store, Google Play Store. Download it to your Android device. Give it a try. If we were all in person at the show, we'd be having it there in VR. If you have a cardboard VR or you can download one, then you can try the VR. If you don't, you just use your phone. You can just play it on your phone.
That's awesome. Well, how can people get a hold of you if they want to ask you questions, or maybe if they have additional suggestions, let's say for a part 2?
So you can go to substitutesanta.com, and Substitute Santa has links to download it. It also has a feedback form if you find bugs. And you can also, there's a link to support@tablestargames.com where you can send email in and offer us advice and tell us what we really should do.
Fantastic. Well, Kyle and Pete, thank you so very much for chatting with me today. I loved everything about your game. It's just, again, I love Christmas, and I'm looking forward to playing it this year. This is just going to be so phenomenal. And good luck. Congratulations on such a successful launch so far. And we will talk with you soon.
Well, what a day we've had for you at the Capital Creative Showcase. We've had tons of great gaming trailers. We've had a lot of very insightful and compelling micro talks. We've had interviews with game devs. It has been a very replete day here at the showcase.
Yeah, it's been amazing. I've learned so much. There's so much insight, things I probably wasn't aware of from all the people who talked to about different game challenges from the pandemic. Hopefully next year we don't have this pandemic and we can do this again in person. That'd be really great.
No kidding. I really do hope, as special as this has been, we all know that we're missing seeing each other in person. We think of all the great times we've had out in West Sacramento with all the tables everywhere, just stretching across wall-to-wall rooms filled with all developers and all sorts of speaking events in the black box. I miss that so much right now. But fingers crossed that in due time, And with better fortune next year, we will see each other in person again for the next showcase. But nonetheless, this virtual one has been one to remember. And I'm very grateful to have been a part of it.
Yeah, same here. So you guys stay safe and be well out there. Stay healthy. Yeah, we just hope to see you guys next year. And yeah, my name is Frank.
I'm Marshall for GPU The Show.
And we'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone.